Ronald Reagan once stated, "The government is not the solution to our problem, it is the problem." And this has been evident even more throughout the decades. Recently, a Gallup poll was actually conducted that said that only 10% of the American population actually approved of the job that Congress was doing. Combine this with the skyrocketing national debt and also a gridlock in Congress constantly, and you get a bunch of indicators that all point to the same fact, that Congress is broken. My name is Caleb Gibson, and I'm here today to inform you about the advantages of instituting term limits for Congress members. Currently, there are no rules about Congress members having term limits. The president, of course, has to get out of office after 2 terms. However, Congress members can stay in office for as long as they want to, as long as they get reelected. This leads to members of Congress like Robert Byrd from West Virginia, who actually spent 57 years in office. He got up to the point where his health had actually gotten so bad that he had to be carried to and from meetings where they actually voted on critical issues. Now, career politicians like this were never supposed to exist. The original intent of our politicians was that they would be citizen legislatures. The idea behind a citizen legislature was that they would get elected, they would serve their time in Congress, but then they would return back home to live underneath the laws and legislation that they had actually passed. But that has actually gone away in recent years. Congress members now can actually serve for several decades, and all the laws and legislation that they pass, they never actually have to live under, because frequently Congress actually votes to have themselves exempt from the laws that they create. This causes a distancing of Congress from the people that they're actually supposed to represent. Another source of distancing for the Congress members is actually their pay scale as well. Between the years of 1798 and 1855, Congress members were typically only paid about $6 a day, while Congress was actually in session. However, in recent years, U.S. senators can actually make upwards of $174,000 a year in salary. And this continues to go up on a regular basis because Congress actually votes on their own pay increases. So, of course, this makes Congress turn into a seat of wealth versus actually a seat of service that it should be. Now, current re-election rates are actually about 90% for re-incumbents. Some people would say that an easy solution for all the people who are stuck in Congress is just don't re-elect them. However, the 90% re-election rate doesn't indicate that this is actually happening. This isn't happening because Congress members who stay on the Hill for a very long time gain a lot of political backing by their supporters and also gain a lot of political contributors. Information obtained on restartcongress.org actually says that Congress members who are incumbents actually raise on an average of $9.4 million for re-election versus their challengers, who actually are only able to raise about $519,000. So this gives incumbents a very big advantage when trying to be re-elected versus challengers. And finally, Congress members who tend to stay on Capitol Hill for a very long time become very entrenched with their political ideals within their political party and begin to worry more about re-election than about what is good for the people that they're supposed to be representing. The classic example of this was the debt ceiling crisis, in which both political parties were so busy debating against each other that they let the clock go down all the way for the debt ceiling increase, ending up in a credit downgrade of the United States. Now, there's no easy fix for this problem. However, a step that would go a long way towards fixing it is instituting term limits for congressional members. This would force them to go back to their lives as regular citizens. When they're done with their time in Congress, they would have to go back and live underneath the laws and legislation that they've passed. And this would force them to become much more responsible with the decisions that they make while they're in office. They would also become far less concerned about party lines and being re-elected, because their job is temporary, and it would revolve more around creating legislation that's good for them when they leave, versus having to toe party lines and get supporters for re-election. And of course, they would also become far less concerned about wealth as well. Members in Congress right now, that is the rest of their life and their lifestyle. However, if it's limited, they will not run for wealth. Instead, they will run just out of want to serve their country. Now, Americans need the people's voice in order to make this happen. Congress isn't going to do this themselves because they're effectively limiting their own power. There are many organizations out there that you can check out in order to help with this cause. There's restartcongress.org and termlimits.org. On both of these sites, you can find ways to donate both your time and money, and even down to something as simple as signing a petition to add your voice to the thousands who have already done so to support these causes. Now, America is ready for this change, but it needs your voice in order to make it happen. So please, support the institution of term limits for congressional members and help prepare America's government. Thank you.